Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast with Benji Naesen. This show is supported by Lecole. You might have thought, preparing for the Tour de France, Giro d'Italia, that's all in the past. You're so late to this, guys. Well, that's where you're wrong, actually. We were waiting for Egan Bernal to receive his papal blessing. He did so yesterday, and now we can safely proceed with our Giro recap. We're not going to do a stage-by-stage recap. We're basically going to cheat, and Giro d'Italia put up on Instagram a list of like 8 things, 9 categories, whatever, that we're going to go through and answer. Things like the best attack, the best team spirit, the most spectacular stage, etc. We'll also talk about, I think, Egan Bernal going to the Vuelta a España, coming out of, how he went at the Giro, as well as what we expect from maybe Sagan based on his Giro d'Italia experience, Benji. But how have you been going? You've been keeping busy with, speaking of a guy who won a stage, Fortunato, you've been doing a Eolo-Kometa series on YouTube.
Yes, certainly. I've really enjoyed the last couple of days, but I did miss our moments on the podcast in the evening. So glad that it's back. But in terms of the PCM series on my channel, I've got a series where I take control of Eolo-Kometa, and the goal was to, across multiple years, build out the team and try and win the Giro in a few years. And that is in-game years, not real-life years, because I'm not going to be playing that in 3 years anymore. But it's going pretty well. I'm having fun with it, and Eolo-Kometa themselves are like playing into it with like rider videos and so forth for it. So it's all awesome to see. And yeah, Fortunato won yesterday on Monte Grappa. So he's showing himself in real life as well.
Yeah, speaking of Monte Grappa, nice segue into our show partner, Lecole, and this timing wasn't, I think they were supposed to release this kit during the Giro, but the timing's almost perfect. They didn't use the Monte Grappa climb in the Giro d'Italia, and Lecole have just released a Monte Grappa kit in conjunction with Alessandro Ballan. You'll remember the World Championships he won back in the 2000s, absolutely stacked Italian team. And Ballan, the commentator, I think I did a video on it ages ago, screaming, Ballan! Anyway, he lives near Monte Grappa. It's in the Prealps in Veneto, and they've released a Monte Grappa kit, Lecole. So if you want to check that out, it's at the link down below. Alessandro Ballan, really versatile, interesting rider, actually, the type of rider he is. And Monte Grappa just got used in the Adriatica Ionica race, which Fortunato, he just won the stage up there, as Benji said. So it's, incredible that the timing on that.
Yep.
But our velogames Italy League, speaking of Lecole, this is the elephant in the room. We didn't forget. Lecole got the kit ready. My team, it didn't do well. 10 litres of orange juice. The DS was Dr. Francesco Bonconi. Didn't do well. They came in the LRCP league like so far down, and I think 12,000th overall. I had Evenepoel, Mollema, Yates, Maida, Ewan, Cavagna, Honore, Ganna, Formulo. My best rider was Yates, and he didn't even have a particularly good Giro d'Italia. Benji did way better than me. He came 23rd in the LRCP league. That's with Cepeda being absolutely useless. How many people do you reckon you convinced, Benji, or we hyped up to put Cepeda in, who has 0 points?
I'm afraid a lot, but I think it's not only us. I think that there was like this over-the-top enthusiasm with Cepeda after Tour of the Alps, and he really did not deliver in the Giro. But like, we're now hitting on him like hard for his performance in the Giro, but
I didn't see him once.
Giro does not define. I saw him once. I think, jokingly, I think I saw him once on the stage that we didn't see anything of. the one where that got shortened to Passo João. At the early stages, he went for a small attack, and I think the 1 second that we saw people attack was including Cepeda trying to bridge up, and then he dropped again, and then he got caught by the peloton, and then we lost him again. So yeah, the invisible man at the Giro, but he also was invisible when it comes to points. 0 damn points in velogames. Crazy. But yeah, I'm pretty happy about the team. I think that the majority of points are obviously by Bernal, Vlasov, Almeida. And Almeida's comeback really helped in that, because like he could have just given up completely after stage 4, but he didn't. He came back, and that gave me a lot of points. And the likes of a Moscon helping out Bernal, the likes of a Tratnik doing decently, Formulo disappointing a bit in my opinion, and then Merlier for sprint and Valter wow, in all honesty, a decent team, and I'm happy with the performances. But I do dream of the moment. What if I didn't pick Cepeda and had gone for Caruso, for example? Oh, crazy.
Exactly, yeah. Caruso, I mean, if you'd gone with Foss, I think was 4 points. Caruso was really, really cheap as well. I think Nizzolo might have been the best sprinter. If you just picked a sprinter, I do think that the points. I know my team was terrible, and this wouldn't have changed my team. But and you and abandoning didn't help me. But I do think the points they favoured, like Chimolai was gaining insane points, and I think it was unfairly stacked towards kind of average riders who just kept coming forth. I guess that's kind of like the Tour de France points jersey, but the guys that actually won. Portuguese cycling by Duarte Ribeiro. His team: Almeida, Bernal, Ciccone, Sagan, Ganna, Caruso, Ulisi, and Oliveira on Movistar, Nelson Oliveira, and Cepeda. So he won with 0 points from Cepeda. You know, Benji, there's not a single photo of Cepeda from the Giro on Cor Vos. There's one photo that's actually of Tesfacion, but it's mislabeled as Cepeda. So he truly was anonymous, and yet Duarte won the full Le Col kit with that team, which is crazy. Portuguese cycling. He had Almeida up front, and maybe we'll talk about Almeida at the end as well, Benji. He's a man I want to talk about. Second place was Show Some Respect for Tour de Romandie by Lawrence, and I refuse to show respect to Tour de Romandie. I won't do it. Egan Bernal came third, just, I think, a couple of points ahead of Ride or Fly by Morten Pedersen. So thanks to everyone for doing that. We're obviously going to do it again for the Tour de France. We'll have prizes for that as well. That was the biggest league ever in velogames history, I think, and we are certainly going to break that record for the Tour de France. We really enjoyed it. My team was shit, so luckily I get the Le Col kit for free because I certainly wasn't winning it. But on to these questions, Benji. First one: the best protagonist rider, the migliore corridore protagonista for the Giro d'Italia. My pick is Egan Bernal.
Yeah, mine as well. I think it's not that difficult, this one, because if you're set out favorite before a race and if you can deliver that with one moment of weakness throughout the entire Giro, then you deserve this prize. And I think there's a lot of other people that were just not consistent enough to be called the best protagonist here.
And he was aggressive too. He certainly didn't ride defensively. He went for stages, went for time throughout the 3 weeks when it was available to him. So, very aggressive, and that's why clear for me. Best domestique, Ineos again, Jonathan Castroviejo, not Danny Martinez. I think Castroviejo was more important.
How about Almeida for Remco? No, it's a joke.
It certainly wasn't Remco for Almeida.
Yeah, that's true. I'm actually going to go Martinez. I think that Castro was indeed very important, but I think that Martinez on Alpine-Mota alone makes it worthy of this prize as well, because he was better than 90% of the other GC riders and basically secured Bernal's performance there as well. We know that his weakness is descending. We know it definitely from that Alpine-Mota stage, but they chose actively to wait for him, and it was a good choice in hindsight because he was so strong on the Alpine-Mota climb that he basically kept it together, and he hammered so hard that people started dropping like flies. And I do certainly want to say him, but there's also, you can say it about a lot of people. I think Moscon in week 1.5 was very strong, and Ganna on Montalcino and in the first week also very strong. I think that in total you can kind of donate this prize towards Ineos, but then you're moving into the team category a bit, don't you think?
I think the best team was, by the way, I had to pick Castroviejo. He dropped me last week in Andorra, so just biased. So he's obviously the best domestique. The best team is Bahrain Victorious, having made a crash out, still won a stage, having landed a crash out. Best team with Tratnik doing so well as well. I have to go with Bahrain. If your second guy on your best domestique basically comes second on GC and really pushes Bernal, and if Castro hadn't been in that valley on Alpine-Mota, might have won the Giro, I has to go for Bahrain for me. But I would accept Ineos if that's your pick, Benji.
I actually had Bahrain written down as well on my my sheet, and I think that it could be given to both Ineos and Bahrain. Ineos was strong enough and learned from their one mistake on Sigadiala, where they decided to react instantly instead of doing the usual Ineos train. And Bahrain just had the bad luck throughout the Giro, and therefore they couldn't reach their highs. And I think that when it comes to team strength at the start of the Giro, Bahrain was the strongest. When it comes to the performance throughout the Giro, I'm going to say Ineos because they delivered the thing they came for.
Yeah, and Bernal, I'd like to say, by the way, he was my pick before in the preview. I picked Bernal to win the Giro d'Italia. I think it's not on this Giro d'Italia list, Benji, but I want to ask this question: worst performance, as in the biggest underperformance. And I've got to go with De Koenig Quickstep. I think they had a terrible Giro. They're bipolar, no clear strategy, dropping back Almeida, they're not dropping him back. Is he going for GC? Is he going for stages? It got better when Remco left, but I think, and this is obviously 2020 hindsight, but it seemed like a weird Giro for them, especially with they didn't really get Cavagna, and Honoré and Knox didn't get much freedom either, which I found surprising.
Yeah, it's a good pick for that, I'm afraid. But another team next to the Koenig that I think really disappointed in my eyes was Androni. And it's not only Cepeda. Cepeda disappointed when it comes to what he did, but also Tesfatsion didn't really do what I was expecting from him. Pelot was arguably the most present rider, but the problem with him is that he spreads his performances throughout so many stages that he doesn't have the strength on one to win it. And I think that if he didn't go for that Fuga classification, for example, and focused more on certain stages, he'd be more towards the Thomas de Gent with the ability of winning an actual stage than now going in the breakaway and basically dropping from the people who win it in the end. So I think Androni, definitely the team that next to the Koenig disappointed a lot for me.
Yeah, one Pro Conti. Oh, to Alpecin count as Pro Conti? I'm not counting Merlier's win as Pro Conti. Just no, I refuse. But the one Pro Conti team to win a stage apart from that was Eolo-Kometa with Fortunato. So I think if you're Androni and Bardiani, you got to have a look at what are we really targeting? Do they, as Benji said, they have their strongest rider on pure sprint stages going for a prize that I didn't know existed until halfway through the Giro d'Italia. Like, no wonder they rarely win stages. The best break for me is Campanart and Riesebeek. I'll remember that. I don't know why. I remember it so much, more than the Taco van der Hoorn one, just because it was just like two guys, like 10 minutes ahead of the GC group, just thrashing about. Terrible strategies. Riesebeek let him out from 300. I remember it so much.
When it comes to best break, I think that I want to make a clear distinction between an early breakaway and the best attack in the stage. I'm going to go for the early breakaway right now, and we can discuss the best attack in the Giro afterwards. But when it comes to the best break, I'm going to have to go with Taco van der Hoorn. And I think that surprised me most due to the fact that he's such a fan favorite. And I had not realized that so much before the Giro. And the fact that this person last year wasn't even sure he was going to be on a professional bike at the moment because he didn't have a contract, and then went to Beat Cycling Club, and then Beat Cycling Club decided to let him go because he got an offer from Wanty, and he decided to go to Wanty, and that's how he started his Giro, and then he wins a stage on day 3. What a road to glory. Let's be real. It's such an interesting story, and that's what I think makes this stage win more special than just a breakaway stage win.
And, Intermarché Wanty-Gobert, they've had 2 wins this year. That was their first, one's an Estonia ITT. That was their only win of the year. So incredible from them. We had a lot of breaks to choose from. We had, going through them, Taco Stage 3, Joe Dombrowski ahead of Damaki to Sestola Stage 4, Gino Maida on the San Giacomo climb Stage 6, Lafay Stage 8 to Guardia San Framondi, Mauro Schmidt Montalcino, Vendrame Bagno di Romagna, Fortunato Zoncolan, Campanat di Slovenia Gorizia Stage, Dan Martin up Sega de Ala, Bettiol, probably the highest quality break win was Bettiol. I think the Stradella Stage 18. There's some really good riders in that break.
I found it such a boring stage, personally.
I quite like the finish. But yeah, so many breaks winning as well. I think, that was the big downside. The best summit finish, we didn't actually have too many. The ones to choose from were Zoncolan with Fortunato, Sega de Aladan Martin. What else was the summit finish? Alpe de Mera, which was Simon
Alpemotta,
Yates.
Campo
Alpemotta,
Felice.
yeah, it's Campo Felice summit. I guess it is. They're going uphill when they finish. So what's your pick, Benji?
I'm going to go with Sega de Ala because we had Almeida open it up with 6.5 kilometers to go on the final climb, and that made that summit finish much better because it didn't have really that feeling that there was a group just thinning out towards the top. It more had a feeling of somebody's attacking and putting pressure on Bernal, and then we saw Bernal cracking, and suddenly the Giro was open again that evening. And I really enjoyed that aspect to it. Not that I want Bernal to lose his Giro at that point. I just wanted to have as much competition and tension into the last week as possible, and that stage gave that extra because the Giro was open again, and that's what made that summit finish more important than the others for me personally.
My pick is Bernal Campo Felice. I just remember him coming, attacking in the dust, dropping everybody, literally leaving them in the dust. He didn't know he'd won the stage. I don't think he'd won a Grand Tour stage until then. So I really, really liked that stage and that summit finish. Best sprint, easy for me, when Ewan closed down Gaviria. I think Gaviria attacked early. When Ewan did that on his own and then destroyed everyone, that was the most dominant sprint victory, I think, this year's Giro. And it obviously got the Australian bias for Ewan too.
I'm going to go ahead and go for Nizzolo. And the reason there is that not only, it's also kind of the story next to it. The story that he finally gets a sprint victory at the Giro makes it a bit more special, that sprint, but also that it was a dominant sprint. It's been a while that we saw such a dominant sprint. That was because, well, he was basically, well, the majority of people were already gone. But it still makes it special because it felt so dominant. Like, it reminded me of the Cavendish days where he came from behind and just put meters into everybody. And that one sprint from Nizzolo does that. Yeah, it's not the most competitive sprint, but it's the more enjoyable sprint and definitely the aftermath of it. People celebrating Nizzolo getting that victory. Oh, I love that.
I think the best revelation rider, the 2021 best revelation rider, has to be Fortunato, just because he's backed it up yesterday with another summit finish ahead of Astana on Monte Grappa. So I think Fortunato, definitely a man to watch. He's 25 years old, really small guy, and he's out of contract. Oh, not out of contract. His contract with Yolo ends this year. Basel World Tour team. I'll be looking at that guy, certainly. So he's my best revelation.
Okay. When it comes to my best revelation, I thought about Fortunato, I thought about the likes of Walter and such, but I think the one that is a better revelation for me is Tobias Vos, because he starts off in an amazing time trial, and we were saying it in the first week. They should focus on keeping Vos in that GC up there and not have him ride for Bennett. And they mistake that in the first week a bit, Jumbo, but towards the second week, it was clear that Vos was going to be the rider in their team that was going to settle it in GC, and he kept on moving up. He kept on moving up, and he proved in the mountain stage, or the proper mountain stage, that his climbing is better than probably 90% of the people expected it to be. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, and he eventually got ninth in the Giro, and that's something that I think the majority of people would in no way have given Tobias Vos before this Giro started. And I think that we're going to see a lot more from him. I think that a parkour in a Grand Tour like the Tour de France this year fits him best because it's got so many time trial kilometers and the climbing's more steady climbs without the very steep sections. So if in 3-4 years we've got a Tour de France again with similar parkours, Vos would be a potential leader for our team.
Another rider, Fiorelli, he came second on the stage 2, the sprint stage, seventh rather, behind the sprinters, and then 2 days later came third in the Sestola finish behind Dombrowski and Demarchi out of the break. So that's some versatility, some punch and climbing that can't be ignored. He came to the sport late, 26 years old. I would also be looking at that style rider.
Yeah, I think he reminds me of Oldani a tiny bit when it comes to the top ride.
Yeah.
They're very similar. They climb both and they sprint both, and I always get surprised when they do either. So
Yeah.
very similar rider type. But I'm going to throw you to another category, best attack. For me, the best attack was probably in the Alpemotta stage, and one would say directly going for Caruso, but I think I'm going to give it to Bardet and DSM because they set that attack up. And despite it not delivering in the end, I think that it was so well set up and so well planned, going at the end of that climb, then actually hammering it in the first portion of the descent, knowing that Ineos are not going to take the risks when Bardet is going to make a move. So really well planned out, and they had their satellite rider Louis Vervac in the breakaway. So that worked out well as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of them. This doesn't really fit the definition. I would go with Benji's pick, but just something that I'm trying to slot into it is Bora's strategy to attack the other sprinters on stage 10 to Foligno when they pace really hard on the Valico della Somma climb, which is still 39 kilometers from the finish. They paced really hard. They even paced with Buchmann paced for a little bit, I think, and they got that stage win with Sagan. So that was just more of a plan well executed. Best team spirit, I guess Bahrain as well. I don't really know what that category is. I don't know. Probably Ineos as well. Amore Infinito, don't know what that is. Most spectacular stage, Benji.
There wasn't a stage out there that was like super spectacular, but the one that I'll probably be reminded a few years in the future is Montalcino because it's such a special setting. And just when it comes to the type of stage that it is, it's something that doesn't happen often. It's been since 2010 in the Giro that we had such a stage. And every year in Strade Bianche, everybody's hyped for it. So I think that's the one that will stay on my mind a bit and will probably be one that I'm looking back to in a few years. But I think that there's not that one stage where I'm like, oh my God, this was amazing,
Yeah, I think the Cortina d'Ampezzo stage, enjoyed watching that one a lot. Stage 16 that Bernal won. No, I'm just kidding. Damiano Caruso's Valle Spluga Alpin stage. Scenery was beautiful. I was happy we got to see most of it. It didn't rain. That was probably the most spectacular stage. But iconic stages, none really. I didn't particularly enjoy this Giro d'Italia. Too many breaks won, too many teams that weren't really interested in pacing back breaks. They just looked at Ineos all day to chase it. And Ineos were like, well, of course we're not going to chase it. I think there's no stage that stands out to me where I'm like, I really want to buy the archive rights to that stage in the future so we can revisit and look at it. The closest one would probably be stage 20 because there was some decent tactics involved and Castro and Martinez came through in the clutch. We should, for completeness, round out the top three in GC. Bernal 129 ahead of Caruso rather, and 415 ahead of Yates. Huge gaps, and this is why I found it quite not particularly exciting because I didn't feel like there was much tension in the race. Dan Martin 10th, 18:35 behind, which is, that's a huge gap to be coming 10th and still 18:35, and then Foss 11:44 in 9th.
Yeah.
But yeah, any last thoughts on the Giro, Benji? Did you like it?
I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it. I think that it's definitely not the best Giro we had, certainly, but I'm happy that we had it, and I always enjoyed the Giro. It's more the community feeling surrounding it that makes it for me, and not only the performances. I had a lovely time with LRCP doing it. Again, I do want to thank every single one of you for the support we had on the Giro because it's amazing, like doing this stuff, and it's great to be able to make a passion into something that is part of your living, and that's what this podcast is also doing. So it's great to do, and it's fun to do, and we try and your support is what drives us to make it better and better every time.
I remember it as the Grand Tour. I moved from Australia mid-race to Andorra, and I only missed one rest day recap. So yeah, Tour de France will be bigger and better. We can't wait, but thanks for this long-awaited Giro recap. Congrats to the velogames 1, 2, 3. I'll be coming for you in the Tour. Ciao.